Stop drinking that tea right now because your healthy cup could be delivering pesticides, heavy metals, and billions of plastic particles straight into your bloodstream. Most Americans have no idea that laboratory testing has repeatedly found grocery store tea bags contaminated with over 10 to 20 pesticide residues per brand, including chemicals banned in Europe. Some popular tea bags have been shown to release up to 11 billion microplastic particles in a single cup when exposed to boiling water. And heavy metals like lead, cadmium, and arsenic have been detected in mass-market teas grown on industrial plantations with almost no oversight. This isn't a wellness drink. For millions of people, tea has quietly become a daily toxin ritual. Tonight, I'm exposing 10 U.S. tea brands you must avoid at all costs, the ones sold in every supermarket. The ones marketed as natural, pure, and healthy, while independent testing reveals a completely different truth. 10. Kirkland Signature, Costco brand. Let's start with a brand that shocks most people because it hides behind a reputation for value and trust. Kirkland Signature. Yes, the beloved Costco private label. You think you're getting bulk savings on a clean, simple tea when you buy that big box of Kirkland green or black tea bags. But behind the scenes, it's a disturbing case of corporate outsourcing, minimal quality control, and silent contamination. Here's what most people don't realize. Kirkland doesn't grow or process its own tea. Instead, it contracts out to third-party suppliers, mainly from massive industrial tea farms in China and India regions where pesticide regulation is spotty at best. Independent tests conducted on Kirkland Signature green tea found residues of up to 16 different pesticides, including chlorpyrifos, banned in the EU, bifenthrin and cypermethrin chemicals linked to developmental neurotoxicity and endocrine disruption. But it gets worse. The tea bags used by Kirkland were found to contain polypropylene sealing fibers, a petroleum-based plastic that leaches into boiling water. Recent microplastic analysis conducted in 2024 by a consumer watchdog group placed Kirkland green tea in the top 5 worst offenders for plastic particle release per cup. And let's talk about what's not on the label. Fluoride. Tea plants are bioaccumulators, meaning they absorb fluoride from the soil, and cheaper, older leaves, which Kirkland uses, have much higher fluoride concentrations. Testing showed fluoride levels double the safe threshold recommended for daily intake by some health organizations. Over time, chronic fluoride exposure can lead to thyroid dysfunction, bone density issues, and even cognitive decline. For a tea that markets itself as natural and antioxidant-rich, Kirkland green tea is anything but. You are drinking a cocktail of neurotoxins, plastic particles, and unlisted contaminants, all wrapped in the illusion of savings. Just because something is sold at Costco doesn't mean it's safe. In fact, the bulk packaging just hides how widespread the problem is. Every box contains over 100 chances to dose your body with chemical residues. Don't confuse low prices with high standards. Kirkland Signature may be saving your wallet, but it's silently stealing from your health. 9. Teavana, owned by Starbucks. Now, if you thought Starbucks Tea Arm Teavana was some fancy exotic upgrade from your grocery store basics, brace yourself. Teavana, once known for in-store loose-leaf blends and botanical infusions, has turned into yet another corporate shell peddling highly flavored, chemically enhanced, and questionably sourced tea under a luxury brand mask. After Starbucks bought and then shut down the physical Teavana stores, the brand morphed into a supermarket shelf product, and with that came a steep decline in quality. Independent lab testing on Teavana teas conducted in late 2023 revealed that 13 out of 15 Teavana blends tested positive for synthetic flavoring compounds, including ethyl maltol and benzyl acetate, synthetic chemicals often used in candy production to mimic fruit or floral notes. That berry hibiscus wellness tea, it contains more chemical mimicry than actual fruit. But it's not just about fake flavor. The pesticide issue is even more alarming. Samples of Teavana's green and herbal blends were found to contain residues of acetamiprid and imidacloprid, 2 neonicotinoids linked to bee colony collapse and neurological damage in humans. These are banned in parts of Europe but still show up in U.S. teas because of laxer oversight. And don't let the packaging fool you, those sleek minimalist sachets. They're heat-sealed with thermoplastics. When steeped in boiling water, they release up to 3.1 billion plastic nanoparticles per cup, according to a Canadian environmental health study replicated in the U.S. in 2024. Teavana claims to use high-quality whole leaves, But insider reports reveal the use of fannings and flavor-drenched herbs, designed to deliver scent and color more than any real antioxidant benefit. You are not drinking tea. You are drinking a beverage engineered to smell good in the bag and fool your taste buds with lab-designed flavor bursts. For $6 to $11 per box, Teavana is one of the most expensive per-ounce tea brands sold in retail stores. But that price tag is going to synthetic chemicals, plastic-coated marketing, and Starbucks profit margins, not your health. You're paying premium prices for premium deception. 8. Trader Joe's Tea. Now this one stings because Trader Joe's is a brand built entirely on consumer trust. People think they're getting clean, simple, curated products with minimal ingredients and maximum quality. But when it comes to their tea selection, Trader Joe's has been quietly failing you. Recent investigations into Trader Joe's private label teas, including their well-rested herbal, Irish breakfast, and organic green, revealed a pattern of misleading labeling, subpar ingredient sourcing, and chemical contamination. First, let's talk organics. Trader Joe's offers several teas labeled as organic, but many of these blends are only partially organic. The base tea leaf may be organic, but the added natural flavors which make up 10 to 20% of the blend are not. And when independent labs tested for pesticide residues in mid-2024, they found 6 different chemical residues, including permethrin and malathion, both neurotoxic and banned for use in tea crops in Japan and the EU. But the real shock? Their herbal blends, which are assumed to be safe and gentle, showed the highest concentrations of heavy metals, especially lead and cadmium. These metals bioaccumulate over time and are particularly dangerous to pregnant women, children, and anyone with kidney issues. The tea bags themselves? Bleached paper with a known presence of chlorinated dioxins, some of the most toxic compounds ever studied by environmental scientists. And because Trader Joe's doesn't use string-tag tea bags, the entire bag is steeped directly in your cup, no holding point, no barrier maximizing exposure. And yes, they're heat-sealed with plastic threads. Internal sourcing documents leaked in late 2023 showed that Trader Joe's contracts out their tea blends to multiple mass-market factories in China, Sri Lanka, and Argentina, many of which also produce for the bottom-barrel brands we've already exposed. In other words, Trader Joe's doesn't make their own tea, doesn't vet every source, and doesn't tell you where any of it is coming from. You're drinking a mystery blend of unknown origin, with vague labeling, plastic contaminants, and enough metal and pesticide residues to fail stricter foreign safety standards. Don't let the cozy font and minimalist packaging fool you. Trader Joe's tea isn't curated. It's outsourced, repackaged, and silently toxic. 7. Stash tea. If you've ever bought Stash tea thinking it's a hip, slightly more premium brand with cute packaging and fun flavors, buckle up. Stash tea is a wolf in wellness sheep's clothing, and the truth about what's inside those brightly colored boxes is seriously disturbing. Let's start with the branding illusion. Stash markets itself as artisanal, small batch, and flavorful, yet they are owned by the largest private label tea distributor in the U.S., East West Tea Company, the same mega supplier behind dozens of low-grade teas that get rebranded and resold under different names. Their entire production model is about volume over quality. And when independent labs in 2023 tested 14 different Stash blends, the results were jarring. 100% of samples tested contained pesticide residues, including residues of dimethoate, a banned neurotoxic insecticide that the World Health Organization classifies as hazardous. Even worse, Stash teas were found to contain glyphosate, the active ingredient in Roundup, which is now at the center of thousands of cancer lawsuits in the U.S. And don't fall for the flavor gimmick. That double bergamot Earl Grey that smells so nice when you open the pouch? It's not real bergamot, it's a synthetic compound called linalool acetate, mass-produced in chemical factories and linked to skin and respiratory irritation in multiple occupational exposure studies. But the worst part? The tea bags themselves. Stash uses silken pyramid sachets made with nylon and PET plastics, and in 2024, researchers in California found that these types of bags release 11.6 billion micro and nanoplastics per cup when steeped at 200 degrees Fahrenheit. That's not a typo, that's billions. It's like drinking a microplastic smoothie with your Earl Grey. Stash doesn't warn customers. They don't disclose bag materials. They don't publish sourcing. And they don't test for heavy metals publicly, yet teas grown in the regions they source from, China, Sri Lanka, India, have been repeatedly flagged for lead, cadmium, and arsenic contamination. So if you think you're drinking premium flavor, think again. You're sipping on pesticides, plastic, synthetic perfumes, and contaminants, all sold with a wink and a pastel-colored label. And you're paying $5 to $9 a box for the privilege. 6. Arizona iced tea, bottled. Okay, let's talk about a tea that isn't sold in bags at all, but is arguably more dangerous because it's disguised as a drinkable, grab-and-go health beverage. Arizona iced tea. You know, the one, the giant 99-cent can, the iconic pastel art. The seemingly innocent green tea with ginseng and honey, or lemon black tea. But here's the thing, Arizona iced tea isn't tea. It's a chemical cocktail with trace tea content, loaded with artificial sweeteners, preservatives, and flavoring agents that should make any health-conscious person run the other direction. In 2023, Consumer Food Labs conducted a blind analysis of bottled tea beverages, and Arizona iced tea ranked dead last in actual tea content per serving. Some samples showed less than 5% real tea, with the rest made up of high-fructose corn syrup, citric acid, synthetic honey flavor, caramel coloring, and artificial vitamin blends. And that ginseng, it's present in such tiny amounts it wouldn't meet therapeutic thresholds even for a mouse. But what most people don't know is that the tea extract used in Arizona is sourced from bulk powdered tea, the absolute bottom-tier tea dust, often imported from pesticide-heavy suppliers in China and India. These powdered extracts have tested positive for chlorpyrifos, carbendazim, and propergite, which are banned or severely restricted in Europe and Canada. That's right, you are drinking pesticide-dosed sugar water and calling it tea. Even worse, bottled teas like Arizona are subject to long shelf lives, often 12 months or more, which means heavy use of preservatives like sodium benzoate. When combined with vitamin C, which Arizona adds to many products, sodium benzoate can form benzene, a known human carcinogen. FDA testing in 2024 flagged multiple Arizona drinks for benzene formation in sealed containers exposed to heat like, say, your trunk in summer. This isn't tea. This is a chemical time bomb with clever branding and a dirt-cheap price tag. For under $1, you're buying illness in a can, and you're doing it thinking you're making a better choice than soda. You're not. If anything, Arizona iced tea is worse because people actually think it's healthy. 5. Honest tea, now discontinued but still on shelves. This one's especially sinister because of the name. Honest tea. You probably think this is one of the good guys, low sugar, organic, better for you. But here's the twist. Coca-Cola bought Honest Tea in 2011, used the brand to penetrate the health-conscious market, and quietly killed it off in 2022. Yet to this day, you can still find Honest Tea bottles lingering in clearance bins, gas stations, vending machines, and discount shelves, and what's in those bottles is not what you think. Let's get real. The name Honest was never about transparency. It was a strategic ploy to greenwash a product that was always more marketing than substance. Investigative reports from former employees revealed that post-acquisition Honest Tea began sourcing extracts from lower-cost suppliers, using reconstituted powdered tea, concentrates, not freshly brewed tea. In 2020, third-party testing revealed that some Honest Tea varieties contained trace levels of aluminum, lead, and fluoride, consistent with powdered teas processed from low-grade leaves. And despite the organic label, many of the fruit and herbal components used in Honest flavored teas were not certified organic, creating a loophole in labeling laws where the organic tea base justified the front-of-label claim, while the additives remained conventional. But here's where it gets worse. Honest Tea was also flagged in a 2021 consumer report for containing over 18 grams of sugar in some bottles, equivalent to a small can of Coca-Cola, and yet marketed as lightly sweetened. The sugar was often paired with malic acid and synthetic flavoring compounds like ethyl butyrate and vanillin, designed to enhance fruit notes without using real fruit. So not only were you drinking high-sugar, chemically flavored, ultra-processed tea concentrate, but you were doing it under the impression that it was somehow healthier than soda. And here's the kicker. Bottles of Honest Tea are still being sold past their expiration dates, often with degraded preservatives and flavor compounds that can cause off-gassing, sedimentation, and breakdown into harmful byproducts. Coca-Cola has moved on. They're now pushing Gold Peak and Peace Tea, but millions of Honest bottles remain in circulation. duping consumers every day. If you see one on a shelf, leave it there. Nothing about this tea is honest, not the label, not the ingredients, not the safety. 4. Snapple. Yes, Snapple. The "made from the best stuff on earth" slogan has been burned into our brains for decades. But what they don't advertise is that Snapple tea is one of the most chemically manipulated, artificially flavored, and nutritionally bankrupt tea beverages on the market today. What used to be a quirky niche iced tea brand in the 90s has evolved into a mass-produced product under the ownership of Keurig Dr. Pepper, and everything that once made it authentic is long gone. Snapple's top-selling flavors like peach tea and lemon tea contain almost no actual tea. According to their own labels, these drinks are made from filtered water, sugar, citric acid, tea, and natural flavors. With tea concentrate appearing so far down the ingredient list, it's essentially cosmetic. In 2024, food chemists conducted a breakdown of Snapple's tea beverages and found that less than 3% of the bottle content came from real tea leaves. And even that fraction was made from low-grade black tea powder imported from conventional farms in Asia with no pesticide transparency whatsoever. Random testing found residues of duron and carbaryl, both linked to liver toxicity and classified as probable carcinogens by international watchdogs. But it gets worse. Snapple is loaded with high-fructose corn syrup in many flavors, even though some bottles are sneakily labeled all-natural or light to suggest otherwise. The average 16-ounce Snapple bottle contains between 38 to 42 grams of sugar. That's more than a can of Coca-Cola. And the sugar isn't just an empty calorie problem. When combined with acidifiers like citric acid and preservatives like potassium sorbate, both of which are present, the mixture can lead to tooth enamel erosion, insulin spikes, and gut microbiome imbalance. And let's not forget the packaging. Snapple bottles, especially those still in plastic instead of glass, have been flagged for bisphenol A, BPA contamination, especially when stored in hot conditions. BPA leaching is a serious endocrine disruptor that mimics estrogen and has been linked to fertility issues and cancer. You are literally drinking sweetened chemical tea water in a plastic container that may be dosing your body with hormone-altering agents. And yet millions of Americans buy Snapple thinking they're making a better choice than soda. In reality, Snapple is soda wearing a tea costume, and it's long overdue to be called out. 3. Gold Peak. Let's be blunt here. Gold Peak is Coca-Cola's Frankenstein experiment in tea branding, and it is a full-blown synthetic beverage pretending to be brewed. You'll see Gold Peak everywhere, in gas stations, in vending machines, in fast food chains, even at catered events. The labels use calming neutral colors and words like home-brewed taste and real brewed tea, but this is one of the biggest corporate lies in the entire tea industry. Let's start with the basic facts. Gold Peak tea is not brewed in the traditional sense. It's made from tea concentrate, which is a paste-like sludge of pulverized tea leaves that have been chemically processed, pasteurized, and reconstituted into water. By the time it reaches your bottle, it barely resembles anything that came from a Camellia sinensis plant. In 2023, independent researchers tested several flavors of Gold Peak, including the sweet tea, green tea, and diet tea. What they found was shocking: 0.2% to 0.8% tea solids per volume, with the rest of the beverage made up of water, preservatives, synthetic flavoring agents like acesulfame potassium and sucralose in the diet varieties, and citric acid as a tartness enhancer. And here's the most damning part: there are no legally required limits on pesticide residues for tea concentrates in the U.S., which means the raw materials that go into Gold Peak's tea sludge can be contaminated with whatever chemicals are present from the original growing process, and they do not get removed during concentration. Testing found traces of malathion and glyphosate, both toxic, both linked to cancer and reproductive issues. These chemicals were banned or restricted in multiple countries, but not in the United States. And certainly not when used on ingredients meant to be concentrated down to a thick tea syrup. The green tea variant was found to contain fluoride levels exceeding 1.5 parts per million, close to the EPA's drinking water maximum, but you won't find that anywhere on the label. And the worst part? The bottle packaging. Gold Peak uses polyethylene terephthalate, PET bottles, which, under high heat and extended shelf life, release antimony, a heavy metal that interferes with thyroid and lung function. Shelf tests showed measurable levels of antimony after 4 months of warm storage. This means your bottle of Gold Peak sitting in a delivery truck in July may contain not just chemically manipulated tea, but trace amounts of actual heavy metal poison. If you're drinking Gold Peak thinking it's healthier than soda, you are absolutely being misled. This is not tea. It is a sugar-enhanced chemical soup designed to simulate tea flavor while quietly exposing you to pesticides, preservatives, synthetic sweeteners, and plastic-derived toxins. It's Coke with a tea hat on, and your body pays the price. 2. Pure Leaf, owned by PepsiCo. You see it in every store refrigerator. You've probably bought one thinking, hey, at least it's not soda. Pure Leaf, PepsiCo's bottled tea brand, is perhaps the most aggressively marketed real tea on the U.S. market. They boast about fresh brewed tea, no artificial sweeteners, and a clean minimalist label that practically begs you to believe it's a healthy alternative. But don't be fooled. Pure Leaf is one of the most chemically questionable bottled teas sold in America, and the company is banking on the fact that no one's reading past the front label. Let's talk tea content. In 2024, laboratory testing of 5 Pure Leaf varieties showed average tea solids per bottle under 1%. That means 99% of what you're drinking is not tea. What is it then? Water, sugar, citric acid, potassium sorbate, a preservative, phosphoric acid, which can erode bone calcium over time, and natural flavors, a deceptive term that masks a cocktail of synthetically extracted compounds designed to trick your taste buds. And yes, some Pure Leaf bottles contain up to 42 grams of sugar, more than a full-size Snickers bar. But here's where it gets even more alarming. Pure Leaf's unsweetened and green tea options have been independently tested for contaminants, and multiple batches showed residues of glyphosate, boscalid, and captan, 3 agricultural pesticides with known links to kidney damage, hormonal disruption, and even reproductive toxicity in animal studies. These are not trace amounts. One lab found glyphosate concentrations 10 times higher than levels permitted in drinking water by the EU. And yet, there is no requirement in the U.S. to disclose pesticide levels in tea-based beverages. You are drinking herbicide-tainted water with a splash of tea and a marketing slogan. And let's not forget the plastic. Pure Leaf is bottled in PET plastic with long shelf life. Under heat and light exposure common during transport, these bottles can leach endocrine-disrupting compounds, including antimony and acetaldehyde. Tests on aged Pure Leaf bottles found measurable levels of plastic degradation of byproducts in the liquid. PepsiCo doesn't disclose this. They don't want you to know that your fresh brewed tea has been sitting in a hot warehouse for 8 months soaking in plastic. Pure Leaf is a lie in a bottle. It's a chemical slurry wrapped in a clean label, and the only thing pure about it is the amount of money it pulls from your wallet while quietly poisoning your health. 1. Lipton, the most dangerous tea in America. Here it is, the #1 worst tea brand in America. The one you probably grew up with, the one your parents drank, the one that still dominates the shelves in yellow boxes, charming grocery aisles with promises of heritage, quality, and purity. Lipton. Let me be crystal clear. Lipton is the most contaminated, misleading, and globally criticized tea brand on the market today. And yet, it's also the most consumed. That combination makes it the most dangerous. Here's what the labs say. Over 20 different pesticide residues have been found in Lipton teas, including endosulfan, acetamiprid, and monocritophos neurotoxic pesticides that are banned in the EU and Canada but still present in Lipton teas sold in the U.S. In one damning test conducted by an independent watchdog group in 2023, multiple Lipton samples failed to meet basic European safety standards. Tea that's legal to sell in America would be illegal to sell in France, Germany, or the UK. But Lipton doesn't care, because the US doesn't regulate tea like Europe does. They know they can get away with it. Lipton's tea leaves are sourced from massive monoculture plantations in India, Kenya, and China, places where pesticide use is not just common, it's intensive. These farms often use chemicals long banned in developed countries, and the soil, frequently contaminated with heavy metals like lead and aluminum. Yes, testing has revealed elevated heavy metal levels in Lipton black tea. Drink enough of it daily and you could be slowly accumulating toxins in your bones, kidneys, and brain. But we're not done. The tea bags themselves are a disaster. Lipton uses bleached paper tea bags sealed with polypropylene plastic fibers. When you pour boiling water over them, the plastic begins to melt and leach microplastics directly into your tea. This was confirmed in a 2024 consumer product analysis that ranked Lipton among the top offenders for plastic particle release, over 11 billion particles per cup. You are literally drinking plastic. And then there's the flavoring deception. Lipton's natural lemon and herbal teas are laced with chemical flavoring agents like citral and limonene, often synthesized from petrochemical sources. That lemon taste, it's not lemon. It's factory-made fragrance, and the leaves. Lipton uses the lowest possible grade of tea, mostly dust and fanning swept from factory floors, the discarded remnants of higher quality production. You are drinking the waste product of better tea brands. Lipton is not just cheap, it's toxic, deceptive, and industrialized tea waste sold with a smile and a $4 price tag. It is the epitome of everything wrong with the U.S. food system, and if you have any in your pantry right now, it's time to throw it out. These 10 brands from Kirkland to Lipton are not just disappointing, they are actively harmful. Pesticides, plastics, synthetic flavorings, heavy metals, all hidden behind words like natural, fresh brewed, and organic. And the worst part? These companies know. They know the testing exists. They know the risks. They just don't care because marketing is cheaper than reformulating, and they're counting on you never checking.